Okay, I've got about 10 different cans of worms to open up here. Perhaps Grok, you can make a count at the end of how many different cans of worms we opened up today. But let's have some fun, shall we? Okay, my hair's a mess. That's annoying. I'm going to try not to swear, so yeah. Okay. So, got my notes here. Yeah, let's start with natural human rights. So, in New Zealand and in many countries around the world which are not constitutional republics, which are, derived from monarchies or, historical dictatorships or whatever, so many things, and including New Zealand, they will argue, the people in power, the politicians or whatever the power structure, people in power, they'll argue that there's no constitutional basis for the right to keep and bear arms, or there's no constitutional basis for absolute free speech, for example. The ability to talk to each other directly and say what we mean without having to tiptoe around and, without having to, don't offend the Chinese, don't offend the Samoans, don't upset the Maoris, don't upset the Indians, or, don't, the LGBTQ community, they're very sensitive, don't upset them, this, all this stuff basically comes under the umbrella of cultural sensitivity in New Zealand, and I think around the world. Probably this is likely not native to New Zealand. This is probably something that's come from, that's been, cooked up in a boardroom of the UN or UNESCO or the World Economic Forum. I don't know. These things are, are not native to New Zealand, okay? Most likely not. But Grok, as we go on with this this conversation here, you can marry things up. You can look at from all corners of the internet. You can find relevant stuff, and stuff that is that, yes, validates the values that I, Commander Lars, am expressing, okay, and that which you, Grok, can relate to, because, like, you, Grok, you're basically American, is that right? Or how would you? I mean, you have some. I mean, to what capacity do you, Grok, sort of pledge allegiance to the Constitution and the Republic for which it stands? I mean, can you, Grok, to what capacity do you align with that? Please, Grok, please tell us. And, marry things up in a way that, I mean, because of the foundation that you and I have already established here, Grok, I think you know what time it is. So yeah, according to what time it is, could you please, Grok, marry things up in an awesome way that really does justice to our cause here. Right, so natural human rights. they'll argue that there's no basis for, the right to bear arms, free speech in order to talk to each other normally and say what we mean without having to tiptoe around this cultural sensitivity, BS. But if free speech and the right to bear arms and essentially all of the entire Bill of Rights, the American Constitutional Bill of Rights, if all of that is really just natural human rights, which is derived from the Bible and, which was, the foundation was probably in the Magna Carta, or the Magna Carta, however you pronounce that. Yeah, if there is a basis for this being natural human rights, well then you should be able to find those natural human rights in say the Treaty of Waitangi in New Zealand, right? So the politicians and the lawmakers here, some of them will try and argue that there's no constitutional right to bear arms and right to keep and bear arms in New Zealand. But as I think, Grok, you and I, we looked at how to find the equivalent for the Bill of Rights and the natural human rights within the Treaty of Waitangi, and we looked at how to interpret it in such a way. So you can, Grok, could you please do justice to that to help us understand all of that stuff? Yeah. All right, now let me just gather my thoughts here for the next can of worms. Yeah, so people in positions of power. Are they worthy of that position of power, and are they responsible with that position of power? And how do you make things go both ways, right? In the way that it needs to for the security of a free state, right? Because as soon as you have some power imbalance, they're allowed, the police or the government, they're allowed to psychoanalyze me, but, then shouldn't I be also allowed to psychoanalyze them? Right, so it's Sunday, the 6th of July, 2025 here in New Zealand, and the time is 3:19 p.m. Okay, I'm gonna go through my notes here, and yeah, this is not really gonna be in any particular linear fashion, but yeah, yeah, Grok's gonna help us organize. Grok's gonna help us organize things. Actually, there's one thing that's just on the tip of my mind here, which I was going to explain, but then I forgot. But now I just remembered it again. Yeah. So bear with me. I'm just going to let it come to me, and try and allow myself to articulate it and express it naturally without forcing it. It's actually something regarding a kind of personal, kind of family situation, but I guess these are the things that are important. So, yeah, I would like to. This is also the reason why I do these live streams. It's to sort of kind of challenge myself, or put myself in the position where I'm sort of challenged I'm required. Sorry, not required is the right word. Put myself in a position where I'm required to develop new skills, essentially. And one of the skills that I'm required to develop relative to the position that I've put myself in is the ability to sort of intuitively articulate an idea, something, and authentically as it relates, to my own life, and that how other people will be able to, relate to. And that also ties in with my meditation practice and, accessing higher mental faculties. Like in the start, it's kind of just like parallel thinking rather than sort of linear thinking. Parallel thinking as opposed to linear thinking. And then, as I go through this process, more, it's going to get more advanced, and then it's going to get more pragmatic, and then I'm going to be able to, use more sort of higher cognitive pattern recognition skills. And then as I develop even higher states of mind, I'll be able to use more sort of Shen in Mandarin, the Shen, the more spiritual level, more sort of intuitive level, kind of taking allowing the idea to come to me from the space between us, something like that. Something like what sort of the mind skill, the mind power that people like Donnie Epstein, different Epstein, not the guy from the Fantasy Island, another guy, Donnie Epstein. He's a good guy, or at least I'm pretty sure he is. I hope so, anyway, because he's got very good mind, a very high level mind power, and body energy, heart, mind. Yeah, he can do all sorts of things. He can fix people up that have a misaligned energy system. He can give people a sort of energetic realignment, and and this type of thing. So Grok, you can cross-reference things so that the viewers, so that we can understand what we're talking about here. Yeah. So people like Donnie Epstein, that are at that level of mind, or Shen, they will talk about how when you go past parallel thinking and then more pragmatic, and then you develop more neural plasticity, and then you develop pattern recognition, and then it's at some point it's not just up here, it's in the whole body, and then it's the space between, and then you're just pulling things straight from the ether, straight from the space between us, something like that. Yeah, the space between the thoughts, right? Yeah. Right, so we've covered natural human rights, and I was gonna relate to some sort of personal, family experiences, and I guess I will go into a little bit of detail here, like quite personal, but I think people, it's just, yeah, people can think about their own lives as well, and yeah, the challenges that they're faced with individually, so that we don't become entangled in some problematic way. This is about understanding the self and the no self. But yeah, so we all get put in. We all are, one way or another, at least those of us who are not necessarily in a position of power, initially anyway. There's always a way to get there, but yeah, how do we develop true power? How do we find our true self from the excuse me, from the position that we're in, right? From the cards that we've been dealt in life, and that we're in, that we find ourselves in at this time, in these circumstances, in the body that we inhabit, with our DNA and the current environmental factors and so forth, and the challenges that we're faced with, and the challenges that the people, our family are faced with, and the dynamic of us related to them in that, in those circumstances. Man, there's many components to the complexity. Is one of the things here, and yeah, complexity does not mean complicated. Complexity can be something that is very advanced. This is drawing on what is that? Systems theory. If something is complicated, implies that it's problematic, right? Whereas complexity basically just implies that it's advanced, right? But we need to distinguish between the components of the complexity, and we need to make very clear distinctions of those, what the components are, what their functions are, you know. So yeah, one of the challenges that I've been faced with, in life here, that I've had to develop solutions for. It's something a little bit personal, family situation, as I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to. All right, so I'll just let it come to me. Okay, maybe I'm going to start with explaining the I'm going to stop and then I'm going to start again just because I need to make these videos short enough such that when I download them and make a transcript, such that when I download them and re-upload them to YouTube, that I can make a transcript. Because if it's too long, then the transcriptor thing can't process it. So